Good morning, my friends. Today is Tuesday, March 24th. I want everybody to have your math books in front of you, and please turn to page 271. I also want you to get your whiteboard markers. I also need you to get your tiles. So any of your fraction tiles that you have, you can see here on my board, you need to grab those. So if you need to go and grab anything, please pause the video and go and grab them. If you have everything in front of you, then we're going to get started. So please turn to page 271. At the top, we're going to be talking about lesson 2 today, compare fractions using benchmarks. So let's read the I can statement. It says I can use benchmarks to compare two fractions and record the comparison with the symbols less than or greater than. All right, let's take a peek at Spark Your Learning. Today, we're going to be reading about Abbott and Rowan. So let's read through it the first time, as we always do. Abbott and Rowan go to the climathon. They both climb ropes that are they both climb ropes that are the same length. Who climbs higher than halfway up the rope? So what is this situation about? Let's think about what this is about. Possible answer. What is the possible answer? Think about it. You're right, climathon. Talking about climbing this rope at this climathon. So let's go back and reread the problem one more time. And we're trying to find the quantities in this problem. So let's find out what we know. It says Abbott and Rowan go to the climathon. They both climb ropes that are the same length. Who climbs higher than halfway up the rope? So we know that Abbott climbs 5/8 up his rope and Rowan climbs 4/10. Okay. What are possible mathematical questions that we could ask to solve this situation? Well, let's go back to the question. The question's asking who climbs higher than halfway up the rope? So they're asking which one climbs halfway or higher than halfway up the rope. So I want you to take a peek at my board here. And when you're doing something called using benchmark fractions to compare things, you have to make sure that the things that you're comparing are all the same in equal length. So let's just take this one right here. Let's take our hole. This hole can represent the rope that both of the kids were climbing. When you're talking about a benchmark is something that you can compare it to. And a benchmark can be either a half, a whole, or 1.5 in terms of fractions. So we're going to use a half here on this fraction. As this benchmark. Sorry, I'm being a little distracted because my kitty is coming this way. Go that way. All right, so half. So the quantities that we know that Abbott climbed 5/8. So remember what I said about everything needing to be equal. So the eighths, if you take a peek at this one, we have 8/8. But we don't need all of the 8/8. We know that we only need 5 of the 8. So I'm going to take away 3 of them because I know that 8 minus 3 is 5. So here we go. Let's make sure. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, and 5/8. Okay, so you have your 5/8. We also know that Rowan, he climbed 4/10. So we're going to take away, I just want you to see this too, that his rope is the same as the hole that we're going to be comparing everything to. But he split his rope into tenths. But he only climbed 4/10. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't need the rest of these, so we're just going to take them away. So this here is 5/8, and this is 4/10. Remember when we talked about numerator and denominator the other day? The numerator tells us how many of the whole we're going to be talking about. The denominator tells us how many parts that whole is broken into. So remember, we talked about this being 5/8. So there's 5 of the parts out of 8 total parts. And this one, there are 10 total parts. We're only talking about 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the question is, who climbs higher than half up the rope? Well, here's half. Here's half of a whole. Here's the half. Which one climbs higher? Is it Abbott or Rowan? Okay, take a peek. If you need to draw this out on your paper, please do so. But I would like you to write, if you haven't written in anything in your box there below, please write in who you think climbs higher than halfway up the rope. What I also would like for you to do is create an equation. Use your fractions and your greater than, your less than or greater than symbols to create that comparison. I'll give you a moment to do that. All right. So you've made a choice of which one climbs higher than halfway up that rope. Well, if you look at, if you're talking about half, and we're trying to compare to half, we can say that 4/10 is less than 1/2. We can also say that 5/8 is greater than 1/2. Think about that comparison using greater than and less than. Okay. So in this case, we know that Abbott climbs higher than halfway up the rope. Just looking at our visual. Okay. Here is your comparison here. 5/8 is greater than 1/2. I want to show you something as well. So some of you probably have already figured this out in your head. That, well, if 1/2 of 1 is 1/2, that if you were to take, I'm going to put my 8s back here. And you were to take all of your 8s here. If you were to think about what is 1/2 of 8, you would say 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice, see if I can move it, that 4/8 is actually equal to 1/2. So when we said 5/8, we already know in our head, we can figure out, we can begin to visualize that 5 is greater than 4. So we know that 5 is larger than 1/2. If we're using 1/2 as our benchmark, and we know 5 is larger than 4. Okay. Take a peek at the tenths as well. Oops. I want you to think about this while I'm placing these tiles back. What is 1/2 of 10? 1/2 of 10 is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at it. Let's compare that to 4/8 and to 1/2. They're all equal. These are all equal. So if you had, remember we talked about that, we had 4/10. We know that 4 is less than 5. So we know that this is automatically smaller than 1/2. I'm going to pause for one moment. I don't know if I can.